I'm an ASC certified master mechanic for over 40 years. So this morning we're going to start off by talking about tire care, brake inspections, windshield care, coolant, why it's important. So if you know nothing about cars or you know a lot about cars, it's cool. This is a good place for you to be. So we're going to talk about how to prepare your car for the winter. Winter time's coming for a lot of us. Winter is already here. So first thing I'm going to talk about is tires and tire care and why they're important when it starts raining. Typically about 3 or 4 seconds is time to replace your tires. And a lot of people don't know what that is. And I'm not going to tell you how to inspect your tires. I would rather you take your car into a shop for the first part of the winter. It's a good time to do an oil change and start this season off fresh. It gives the mechanic an opportunity to look over your car, give you any kind of recommendations for things that they may see while they're doing the service, like maybe you need a belt change, maybe you need a set of wiper blades, and we'll go over that stuff as we go. But let me explain to you a little bit why tires are so important when it starts to rain. So when it's raining, the treads in your tires are designed to push the water away out of the way. It directs the water. So what happens is when your tires start to bald and they don't have as much tread, there's not as enough ability for the tire to direct the water out of the way of the vehicle. And what happens then is what they call hydroplaning. If you allow your tires to get so low that they're getting to the balding point, what happens is your tire becomes a ski. And that's when you see people where they hit a big puddle and they start spinning around out of control. It's because their vehicle started to hydroplane. So right now is a perfect time to take your car into the shop and say, hey, I want to get an oil change done. And while we're doing that, let's take a look at the tires and see what kind of condition they're in as far as depth of the treads. And then also while you're there, let's do a brake inspection. Why? Your car's braking ability is highly reduced in wet weather. You can't drive at the same speed and application of brake, as you do in the summertime. So now's a very good time, to go ahead, do an oil change, say, hey, let's pull the wheels and let's look at the brakes while we're there and get a good idea of what kind of condition the brakes and the tires are in while we have it on the rack. And so here's a couple recommendations I'm going to give you. Straight out every September, put new wiper blades on. Why do I say September? Even September is a good month because the rain's getting ready to happen, and just get ready ahead of time. And also, wiper fluid is something you need to want to keep an eye on top of. And I'm going to tell you something that I recently learned that works really good. They have wiper fluid tablets now, which I was kind of like, what are you talking about, But I've been using them now for about the last year. And to be honest with you, man, they're convenient and they work well. You drop a tablet in the bottle of water, you shake it up, and you have fluid. So you can do the same thing on your windshield washer bottle. You just drop the tablet in the bottle, fill it up with a water hose, and you're done. A lot of people can think about, it's going to have debris. It does not leave any debris behind. Okay, so I highly recommend this time of the year is you put Rain-X on your windows. First of all, you should really be washing your windows really well to get a start of a good clean surface, because your visibility in the rain is what creates accidents. You can't see well, your braking is diminished, and then if you're driving too fast, you can't see well, and then somebody stops in front of you, that's where it happens at. I recommend that you put new wiper blades on. You make sure you got good washer fluid, and I'm going to recommend Rain-X. If you've never used Rain-X before, the first time you use it, you'll be a believer forever. Rain-X is such a good product, in my opinion. I've been using it for probably 25 years now, and it's probably one of the best products on the market for beating water off the glass. So basically, a good brake inspection, an oil change, Have them look over your belts and hoses while you got it on the rack. New wiper blades. So let's talk about coolant care for a minute. A lot of people don't understand that your coolant needs to be maintained. So coolant care, it's hard to explain to people that antifreeze, over time it needs to be replaced. Antifreeze does two things. First, it stops electrolysis from happening where you have two dislike metals, and also lowers the freeze temperature of your water. And so what can happen with freeze temperature? So if you put straight water in your car at 32 degrees, it's going to turn into ice. And what happens then? As water freezes, it expands. As it expands, it starts breaking stuff. As the water expands, it can break things. It can crack your block. It can crack the head. It can crack the housing on the water pump. It can make hoses crack. So it can do a lot of things. So over time, there's a way to test antifreeze so you can see what the antifreeze protection is. It's not a big a deal if you live in California or somewhere where it doesn't get real cold, but you're living in the Dakotas or somewhere where it gets, 10 below outside. Absolutely should have your antifreeze checked every year. I learned that the hard way when I was in my 20s. I had a truck and I put straight water in it. I didn't know any better. I think I was younger than that. I was about 18. And I cracked the block in a straight six Ford pickup because I put straight water in it. So that's one of the things you need to do. You need to be thinking about your antifreeze before winter hits. You have it checked. If it's not meeting the specification to get the freeze level down or the acidity of the coolant has changed, you need to do a coolant flush. You just take it to the shop and say, hey, I want the coolant flushed. Okay, here's another thing to think about. Is your heater working to capacity, and does your defrosters work? And if you don't understand defrosters on your dial, there's a place where it'll say defrost. When you turn that to defrost, you should get heat out of the vents. And what does that do? Well, that helps heat the glass up to get rid of ice off the glass, and it keeps condensation off the glass when you're driving. So in the wintertime, a lot of times your window will start to fog up. The heater is something you want to think about now. Don't wait until it's really cold out and all of a sudden you don't have heat and you have no defrost on the window and it becomes a problem. And here's a product I want to tell you guys about is de-icer. I was unaware of de-icer for many years, and a place where I worked, they kept it in all the work trucks. And I tried it one day and I was thinking, man, this de-icer is amazing. So it comes in a can. It just says de-icer on the can. And I used to be the guy out there scraping the window with my credit card, taking the thing and trying to get it clear. But this de-icer is just in a can. And you can spray that stuff on like a 1/4-inch sheet of ice. Within 30 seconds, the windshield's clear. So if you're living in really cold areas, I highly recommend thinking about getting a can of de-icer and just keep it in the vehicle. And then you can just spray it on it as you're getting in the vehicle in the morning. The ice is gone. It makes it really easy. So heater cores are something, and that's something to keep in mind when I'm talking about coolant care. When you leave your coolant in the vehicle for a long time and you don't maintain it every couple of years, I recommend it once a year if you can afford to do that. What can happen is it starts to build up debris in the coolant. And heater cores have a very, very small little tiny runners in it. It's basically like a little radiator that lives under the dash. And the water goes through the heater core. It heats up that little radiator. And then a fan comes on and blows air through that hot radiator, heater core. And that's where you get your heat from. So what can happen if you don't maintain your coolant like you should, all those little tiny debris get hung up in that heater core. And once they get to that point, now it doesn't get flow. So even though the temperature of the vehicle is coming up to temperature, you're not getting any heat in the vehicle. And then you lose your defroster, which is really dangerous. So that can be really dangerous, because, when you're driving down the road and you're wiping your window because you can't see out of it, it's a really serious danger of creating an accident situation. And, In the winter times, slow down a little bit. You know, I'm one of the worst ones for that. You know, it seems like everywhere I go, I'm wide open throttle. And when the first rain comes, that's something to think about. Because what happens during the first rain of the season, all summer long, you know, people's little oil leaks here and there, brake fluid that's on the road, it sits in the bottom portion of the blacktop. And then the first rain, what'll happen, all that oil will come to the surface. So your first couple rains during the season is a really good time to be really slowing down, because it gets slick because of the oil comes to the surface of the road. So, and heater core replacement can be very expensive. You're a lot better off to have your coolant, and you can just do a drain and fill. You don't have to go do a flush. You can just, you know, drop the lower hose, drop it in a pan, put new coolant in it once a year, and you'll be good to go. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to have to pay somebody to change the heater core. Some of these heater cores now, you got to pull the whole dash out to get the heater core out. Coolant is cheap compared to having to spend a couple $1,000s to have somebody change out the heater core. So just, you know, make that part of your annual inspection. I've seen a lot of things happen when it comes to like electrolysis from not changing your coolant, where it'll actually just start eating parts. You know, the coolant gets acidic. And I pulled off water pumps and the impeller was like half eaten off. It's that time of the year. It's time to think about your maintenance on your vehicle. You know, it's time to, you know, look at the wiper blades, put on some Rain-X, and I'll do a video on how to do Rain-X. Rain-X is basically wash the window really good, dry it. It needs to be fairly warm outside. You can't do it when it's cold. So it needs to be about, I think they don't recommend it below 60. So you wipe the window down, you put the Rain-X on with a rag, and then you let it dry. It's kind of like wax in your window. You let it dry, and then you buff it off. I don't know why more people don't use Rain-X. And let me tell you the reason behind washer fluid. And even wipers during the summer, doing wiper blades in the summertime, they think, oh, it's not raining. Yes, you need to have good wiper blades and good washer fluid in your bottle, and know that the washer pump is working. So when you push the button, it should be spraying windshield washer fluid on the glass, and there's a reason for that. Let's say in the summertime, you're bolting down the road, you're in traffic, you got people side by side to you, and somebody blasts across a can of paint in the road, or hits a big old nasty puddle of something and splashes it up on your window at 75 miles an hour in traffic. If you have good wiper blades and washer fluid, you can clear that out of the way where you can see where you're going. Batteries. Now is a perfect time to have your battery tested, because batteries normally fail the first week it gets really cold. Like working in shops for 40 years, soon as the temperature drops, that next week we'll have 20 batteries come in. Because cold weather is when a weak battery will show its ugly face. The first morning you have a real cold morning when it's like, you know, 10 degrees outside, or, you know, depending on where you live, you know, that first really cold morning is when that weak battery is going to show its ugly face. You'll go out there and it won't even hardly crank, you know, and it's because batteries don't like to operate in cold weather. It's just the way they are. So, you know, think about that. You know, if you're taking your car in, have an oil change, have new wipers put on, and, you know, all these things we talked about today, say, hey, while I have that in there, can you load test the battery? They just hook up two cables and they put a load on it, and they can tell if the battery's good or bad. To prep for winter, I would recommend, you know, if you're not an auto mechanic, you're not mechanically inclined, take your car in and start with an oil change for the season. While you have it there, ask them to look at the brakes, do a brake inspection, put new wiper blades on, make sure the washer bottle is full and that the wipers are functional. And if you don't understand tire care or when they should be changed, take them into a shop, have them look at them. Most shops will look at your tires for free. they want to sell you tires. So they'll more than happy to look at them. And if they tell you that you need tires, have them take you out there and show you where your tread depth is, and have them show you a new tire and show what the tread depth is. Your possibility of spinning out in the road is increased dramatically, because if you hydroplane at 60 miles an hour, you're just along for the ride. If you don't know anything about a vehicle, this is the perfect podcast for you. If you have anything to add, drop it down in the comments. Go big or go